What's up, Laker Nation? My name's Ankit. I go by AO, at World of AO on Twitter, and I'm looking forward to doing this pod for you today around the Lakers and really what can we look forward to in terms of improvement from the roster that we could potentially bring back. Rob did a hell of a job at the trade deadline, really worked that pre-agency angle to fill in some gaps mid-season. And we really saw the benefits of that in a small sample size and into the playoffs, where we had a very admirable and successful, I would say, run. Even though we didn't come out with a championship, we really made noise and we really had the league kind of turning their heads and getting us back into that top elite kind of status in the NBA. Trevor Lane put out a pod around the CBA, the implications of the CBA, and what can we realistically do as an organization going into this offseason. And really the theme of that was a lot of continuity, bringing a lot of our players back, and of course leaving some room to work around the margins in terms of maybe trading some players or acquiring some players with our exceptions or a vet min, what have you. But I know as Laker fans, we love shiny new toys, we love acquisitions, we love that new player, the big splashes, but I kind of want to work away from that and focus in on the players that we look like we are going to bring back and what were the gaps and how can we improve those gaps to get to that next level without even adding new players. So, to start, we were 2-10 to begin last season. A very, very rough start. Didn't really have a great roster. Very, very guard heavy. We saw the repercussions of that throughout the season. Under 500 for most of the time. Rob had a huge trade deadline. We brought in a number of key players, Rui Hachimura, D'Angelo Russell, Jared Vanderbilt, to name a few. And we really saw it turn. 17-6 after the All-Star break, 18-8, I believe, after the trade deadline. Trending towards, a 50-win team if we extrapolate that sample size. And we had a really deep playoff run. And it was really because of that trade deadline. Now, if we look into this season and we bring these players back, where can we improve, right? So let's start off with Austin Reeves, my personal favorite player. Austin, terrific playoffs. He really separated himself from the pack. We're seeing that with how much he's going to command in free agency. And for him, we didn't see a lot of Austin Reeves on a consistent basis in the first half of the season. We had a very heavy guard rotation. And when we did finally start him, we really got to see his capability. And we saw that in the playoffs, where his ability to create a shot, ability to draw fouls, he was hitting the three. So with that said, I think him being our starting two for a larger sample size is already a huge improvement. I really think we're going to see him level up and be one of those top shooting guards in the league. But where can he improve? I mean, we saw that he was about 40% during the season on 3 attempts from three. The volume definitely shot up in the playoffs. And I think that's something that needs to continue. And if Austin Reeves can develop that catch and shoot three ball, being able to shoot the three off the flare, I think that's going to pay dividends. We know when they're spacing with AD and LeBron, it opens up the floor for them and good things happen. So I think for him, if he can really develop that shot this summer, make it consistent. He was at 3 attempts per game during the season. It shot up in the playoffs. If he can maintain that 40%, 39% percentage on higher volume, that's already a significant improvement from where we were. Outside of that, I'd like to really see Austin Reeves get a little stronger. We saw some of that at the beginning of last season. I believe he gained 15 pounds, muscle. But I think that strength is going to allow him to body, not let guards get into his chest when they go to the lane. And it's really going to turn him into that two-way player that we're hoping for. And he has the capability to do that. I think with those two things, being able to as well get to the lane and finish possessions at the rim without having to draw the foul, and in the best case, getting that and one, I think are going to be 3 significant improvements to what we saw. And when you compare him across the landscape of the league, sure, there's premier shooting guards out there, right? Devin Booker, you name them, right? I think Austin Reeves has a spot, maybe not in the elite, but in that top tier. And I expect him to really explode in his third year, really take that leap and become that third, fourth option for us on a very consistent basis. And that alone over a full sample size with more continuity with our team, with AD and Braun, I think is only going to pay dividends. So Reeves, I think, is going to be a great place to start as our starting two guard. Moving on to Rui Hachimura. We didn't have Rui Hachimura for the first half of the season. We didn't pick him up until a couple weeks before the trade deadline. So just having him again for that full body of the season is going to be something very, very different from what we saw. I mean, his playoffs was phenomenal. We saw him hit the three at a huge, huge clip. I don't know how much he's going to be able to maintain that, but there were flashes of things that we really wanted to see, and we saw him get physical on the defensive end with Jokic, and really hold his own. And he's another one of those two-way players that we didn't have, that we will have to start the season. Now, where can he improve? We saw that three ball go in. We saw really hot stretches for him, but I think, again, the consistency in that three ball off the catch and shoot is going to be big over a larger sample size. Again, that opens the floor up for AD and Braun, for them to do their thing. But again, that three ball, if it can stay consistent, I would say that 36, 37% range, we're in for a treat, I think. But more so than just the offensive end. We know he can score. He's got that mid-range jumper. He's got that fadeaway. He could get into the post with his strength. But outside of that, the defensive end, I think he really needs to hold his own. Does he become a better perimeter defender next year, especially for those quicker threes? We know LeBron is kind of playing the four now for large stretches of the season, even into the playoffs, and I don't see him really guarding those premier threes. But can Rui take that next step and hold his own when he's guarding a Paul George, a Jaylen Brown, a Kawhi Leonard even? A Kevin Durant? Can he do these things? He may not be the best at it, but can he hold his own? And I think I'd like to really see that from him. And I think if he can shore that up, we have a starting caliber player that we can place at the three right away and have that big front line and really that well-balanced starting lineup that we saw for flashes in the season and in the playoffs. Maybe not starting, but I think definitely as a closer, it'd be really, really important because of that offensive prowess. But I think the biggest thing Rui can do, I'd like to see him do, is get better on that rebounding end. He's got a big body. He can battle in the post. He can battle with bigger players. But getting that rebounding on the offensive side and really the defensive side where we really struggled. I mean, how many games did we see where we were just getting beat on the offensive glass, leading to second chance points? And I think he plays a big part, and he's more than capable to really be a high-end rebounder with his, physicality. And I think if he can shore that up, and along with keeping that scoring in place that we saw in the playoffs, we're going to get a very complete player. And I think Rui is just getting to that point where he's really hitting the ground running, really coming into his own and finding his game. But again, between Reeves and Rui, those are two players that, I would like to see in the starting lineup. And I think could be on that upper side of the league when it comes to comparing to other players and other rosters. That leads me to Vando. Vando, interesting specimen of a player. Has a lot of length, great size, was a good rebounder when he was in Utah, and his defensive capability was off the charts. We saw him guarding the perimeter players, guards. He could guard up, but not the best when it came to guarding fours or more physical players. But that perimeter defense we saw on full display in the regular season to finish off the year. And I think that was a big reason why we finished 17-6. after the All-Star break and we got into the play-in. What I hope Vando can accomplish this offseason is really getting to that corner three and making that consistent. A PJ Tucker type almost. We don't need him to be 39, 40%, upper echelon. But if you could give me that 34, 35% to keep the defense honest, not completely crowd the paint when we bring the ball into AD or letting LeBron attack the paint, it opens up a new dimension for us. And I think that was our Achilles heel in the playoffs when we were starting him. We got away with it against Memphis. We got away with it against the Warriors because they had lineups that were conducive to having Vando out there. AD was having, a dominant series from the defensive end as well. But I think if you can get him to make that corner three on a semi-consistent basis, it's going to, again, open up drives for Braun. It's going to open up that post action for AD. It's going to open up those drives from Reeves and give Rui a chance to work. But I think that's going to be the biggest part of a game. And, when you think about skills, he's so young. If he can just focus on that one thing, I think he is really going to take that next step. If I had to say a second thing that I would like, and I think this comes with more of an offensive scheme from Darvin Ham, is can we get him to provide more off-ball action? And it doesn't have to necessarily always be cutting to the rim. Dives to the basket are great, but, setting those back picks, getting into the lane and finishing. He's not the best finisher, and we saw that on display. Having a little bit of a layup package at the rim. Can you dive and hit that floater, that push floater from 5-6 feet? I think that's the second dimension to his game that would be great, but I think it comes from the offensive scheme that Darvin Ham puts in place. And him just staying in that corner was not effective. It killed us against the Denver Nuggets. And a lot of, the teams we saw in the playoffs, they were scheming against that. We luckily were able to get away from it. We had counters. We just had good star players to help with that. But he can't be that player that just stays in the corner. We need more action from him off ball. And again, I think that's an offensive playbook item that, the coaching staff needs to put in place to make him more effective. And I think with the training camp, with us having him at the onset of the season versus midway through, we can figure those things out. But he unlocks those two dimensions. We now lose that Achilles heel, and we actually can make him playable in the playoffs. And again, utilize that defense to the full capability so he can stay on the floor at a longer time. So that's Vando, and that leads me to more of a prospect, but I think has a lot of potential, is Max Christie. I mean, the kid is 6'6", big IQ for Max Christie. I think we saw that early on. Dave McMenamin put out a report that said he may have grown to 6'7". Great size for a wing. And I think what we saw in the flashes during the regular seasons with Max Christie was he was able to navigate through screens. He was sound defensively. He had good principles. And he was knocking down the three. He was shooting 40% from three on very low attempts. I think it was 60 for the season that he had. But when he came in, you felt comfortable, even for a 19-year-old rookie. And it would be great if we could get him into the rotation, not big minutes, 10 to 15 maybe, but give him those reps. He had a great G League stint. And I think that's really where that three-point shot got consistent. He settled down, it developed. But he brings some, who doesn't want a 3-and-D wing in this league, in this era of the NBA? And I think we have that in Max Christie. If we would have given him some more rotations last season, could he have been a Christian Braun type? That we saw against Denver where he was, Christian Braun did some big things. And, he had a couple big games in the finals. I'm really hoping he has that trajectory next year. And he can, really come into his own and we can really see his potential. Because the skills are there. We need him to be a high-end, rotational player. He plays sound defense again, and he can really hit the threes. So I think there's a lot of potential to unlock with Max Christie, and people can mention, oh, if we don't bring Lonnie Walker back, can we depend on him? Well, you have Austin Reeves as a starting two. He's going to play a bulk of the minutes, maybe 30 a game, 30 to 35, I would hope. So that leaves 14, 15 minutes for a guy like Max Christie, and whoever else we bring on the margins. But that is enough time that I'm hoping Darvin Ham can put him into the rotation, insert him, give him reps, so that we can really see his full capability, because the potential's there, the skill set is there, and I'm really hoping he could come into his own. I mean, people were saying if we didn't draft him at that time last year in the second round, he could be a lottery pick this year, which is huge, huge to have on your roster. And I think there's a lot of untapped potential there. On Twitter, you always saw, let's give Max Christie a shot. Let's give Max Christie a shot. Well, he's got a chance to earn that spot. So I'm really hoping we can see that length on display, the shooting, and open up that young, hungry player off of our bench that can really help us in an 82 game season. And that brings me to my last player, D'Angelo Russell. He's probably been the most polarizing player on the Lakers roster since the acquisition of him. He was having a career year in Minnesota, about 20-6, shooting 40% from three. And it didn't dip off too much when he came to LA for the regular season. 17-6, shot 40%. There was a lot of synergy with Reeves. It was a great pickup for us, and I think he solved a lot of issues. He's 6'4", a bigger guard, shifty in the mid-range. We know he's not a POA defender. He's not going to be. But can he be a good team defender? Can he defend within a system? And I think we saw flashes of that in the first 2 rounds of the playoffs. And where he really got exposed, we all know, was in Denver. Averaged 6 points per game, could not keep Murray in front of him. Really, who could all the playoffs, right? But that does cause, areas of concern. And he averaged 6 points per game. I want to say that's an aberration. That's an anomaly. He played 16 games in the playoffs, more than he has in his past career. And I thought it was great experience for him. And I think at the end of the day, he's looking for a home. And when you look at the point guards out there, he's number 3 on the NBA big boards. There's Kyrie, there's Fred VanVleet. D'Lo's right there. We have a number 3 point guard in this offseason class, that could come back. And I hope if he comes back on a friendly deal, we can have him starting day one. And I know that's controversial, but when he played well in the regular season, our team played well. He was the reason, and he is maybe not the reason, but was a big part of the reason we went 17-6. And he addresses so many needs for us in terms of outside shooting. He does get his teammates involved. Not the best playmaker, but he can get his teammates involved. And I think if we can trust him with the rock a little bit more, and really let him run that offense next to Reeves, I think he's a guy that can carry you through the season. Now in the playoffs, what I'm banking on is that experience that he got, how he played against Denver is fuel for the next year. And I'm not quick to just throw him away. Could we get a CP3 on the vet min market? Great backup point guard for him. But I think if we give D'Lo a real shot, let him be what he is, I don't think we're going to see significant improvements from him with new skills, but I think the skills he has can be elite. And, if he's at that 20-6 level again with us, take the pressure off of Braun, let Braun be off ball or in the post and let D'Lo kind of create, I think we can see that borderline tier 1, tier 2 player. And I think him on opening night only gives us potential to get to that 50-win season that we want to have and into the playoffs. And so I don't want to give up on him just yet. He's got a huge skill set, and it's a skill set that I think we can continue to optimize, with his outside shooting, with his mid-range game, and that shiftiness that we didn't have at the beginning of the year. And I think he's a player that can get you through the season, and we could get to that 50 to 55 win range. I mean, barring health, right? But He's a player that I'm really hoping can make that bounce back next year, and we can really see a full body of work with him. But I mean, between those five players that we just went over, AD and LeBron aside, we can talk about them all day. But just those five, if they can untap one of those skills that I mentioned, that's not just incremental improvement. That's an improvement that takes you up a tier from what we saw in that last playoff run. And that's without adding anyone else. You know, between those five players and AD and Braun, that's seven right there. And we'll see who we bring, in the offseason to kind of fill in some of those gaps. I'm hoping for some wings, some bigger wings. We'll see what we do with the 17th pick. The Dorian Finney-Smiths are out there, the Royce O'Neals. Players that, we can put out there and defend at a high level, hit the three, be that two-way type. But, I'm hoping with that kind of rundown, it brings some optimism. I think there's so much room for improvement with this team, and I'm just hoping for the best. So we'll see what happens in this offseason. We got the draft in a few days, and I think we're gonna make a little bit of a splash. But rest assured, if we bring back these players, I do think we're on our way to having a successful season. And there'll be more pods to come around AD, around Braun, but I'm really, really excited for these five players to return, and us seeing what potential they can actually reach. So hope that was insightful for you guys, and thank you for the opportunity.